Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we will be talking about Heung-Min Son's farewell. He has now left the football club after a fantastic 10 years, Europa League winning captain. And of course, we'll be talking about the draw against Newcastle here in Seoul, South Korea. My name is Chris Cowlin and we are live on YouTube, Facebook and X. So please do get involved. Now, it has been an emotional 24 hours. So I'm going to go straight to our panel this evening. Let's introduce them first. We've got Terry Kim, Korean fan, of course, from New York. Terry, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris. I know it's 12:30 there, and Chris just mentioned that his taxi's picking him up in just a few hours here. So the commitment from this guy is absolutely unbelievable. So thank you, Chris, for everything. Thank you for all the content. Thank you for hosting this. I was speaking to Dustin in the green room. He and I are having a little bit of Korean soju together in toast to his son. Dustin, looking forward to talking Spurs with you, Chris as well. And then, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Ricky. Great to be on here with you as well. I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's surely been an emotional day, an emotional week. Really an emotional couple of months since Bilbao. Really, a lot has gone on. So absolutely looking forward to it, guys. Yeah,
absolutely right. Also with us is Dustin Lau, all the way from Singapore. Dustin, how are you?
Annyeong, how's everyone? Glad to be here, and it's a special pod because it's Son's last game. I was just writing to friends, this is the last time we're going to see him in that shirt, and it was very emotional.
Yeah. I've got to admit, inside the stadium, it felt really, really weird to finally see him leaving, and we're never going to see him in a Spurs shirt again. It just feels really weird. I know, Ricky. Let's come to you. Welcome back on the channel, and how are you feeling right now?
Oh, mate. Firstly, thanks for having me back on as always, and it's great to be on with Terry and Dustin and yourself, Chris. I just never thought the day would come. I just thought that Super Sonny would just carry on being our number 7. It feels weird that he won't be in that shirt. It feels weird that he won't be playing this year for us. It feels weird that maybe somebody else comes in and takes that shirt. But you know what? He has left such a legacy behind him. Not only loved by all of us Spurs fans around the world, but loved by everyone, loved by every fan and every club. But, there's been gooners that have texted me, saying how much they love Son. I've got a couple of Liverpool friends that have always wanted Son at Liverpool. He's that guy. You could see the amount of respect that Newcastle gave him on the pitch today, and that every single player that has played against him or has managed to speak to him has been fantastic. Do you know what I mean? It's been full of heart, full of class, full of respect. He is he is left on a high as well. I'm glad that he finished those 10 years lifting that trophy and not being one of those, that have gone on and had to win it somewhere else. He done it with us. And to see a smile on his face today was bittersweet. It was lovely. It was good to see him. It looked like the weight was lifted off his shoulders, but you could tell how hard it was for him and how heartbroken he was, and how that energy was in the stadium as well. So I know you'll speak a lot more about that, Chris. But it's kind of an honor to mark the 10 years that he's been with us, and he's leaving by being on with you beautiful people today, and all of you beautiful people around the world. So. Can't wait to get in.
Terry, before I come to you, just got a couple of snippets of news here. Now, Heung-Min Son is staying in South Korea. He's not travelling back with the Tottenham Hotspur squad to London right now, because it is expected that he will complete a move to Los Angeles Football Club in the next 48 hours, and Spurs will receive around £15 million. And reports are stating now that Heung-Min Son waited until every single Tottenham Hotspur player boarded the coach. He watched every single player and staff member go out the door, and then he got in his own car and then left the stadium. I tell you, it just feels a very emotional moment right now. But Terry, I'll come on to you in a second. Thomas Frank has just stated that James Madison likely has a bad injury, and João Palhinha has just started following Tottenham on Instagram. But we'll come on to talk about those few bits and pieces shortly. Terry, how are you feeling right now about the Heung-Min Son news? Because it happened so quickly. I was actually up in Seoul Tower. I literally got to the top of Seoul Tower, and then the news came through that Heung-Min Son told Thomas Frank that he wanted to leave Spurs, and then all of a sudden he went into the press conference, broke it to the world. How did you feel at that moment? And how do you feel now, having seen him say goodbye to everyone in South Korea?
I think everyone's said that it's felt like this was coming, but when it actually did come, it just did hit differently, right? It hit differently than when Lloris left. It hit differently than when Kane left. It's just it feels like a family member. It feels like a brother leaving. It's just Ricky, I think you hit it on the head. I do feel honored. It's just by coincidence that I'm on this pod and Dustin's on this pod, but I do feel honored that I get to speak at Son's last game here. Like talking about kind of knowing that it was coming. The last month or so, I've been going back and watching some old highlights, and I'm kind of ashamed to say that I forgot just how electric Son was. I think it's just recency bias with this, not just his finishing and his speed, which we all know about, but the quickness, his ability to get that extra yard, to get that shot off, his reaction times. Just this one game that really stuck out to me. It was Conte's first season. It was Villa away, and Sonny hit a hat trick in that game. So his first goal, it was a rebound goal off of a Kane shot in the early few minutes. And then his second goal is arguably my favorite Spurs team goal. It was the Romero ball over the top to Kane. And as soon as Romero hit that ball, Sonny just hit the Jets, and it just hit the Jets running down the left-hand side. And then Kane knows he's there, and he does that quick glance to the left to see where Sonny is, then heads it perfectly into his path. Matty Cash is chasing after Son like a helpless little baby. And then Emi Martinez is actually in position. But that was the time when you knew with 99% certainty that when he was near the goal, that it would go in. You knew, and it just made me realize there was maybe a 5-year period or so, particularly under Mourinho in Conte, where Sonny wasn't just one of the best wingers in the Premier League. He wasn't just one of the best players in the Premier League. He was one of the best players in the world. I mean, he would have made any starting 11, arguably, in the world, whether that was Real Madrid or Barcelona or Man City or Liverpool. And the fact that just as a Korean, it's hard to express to you guys just the immense sense of pride that brings us. Not that just that he was such a superstar and so exciting, but he did it the right way. Like he did it. He embodies just values and characteristics that we really value. I mean, just the humility, the hard work, the perseverance, the determination, just the kindness, the joy, and then kind of underlying all of that is just this quiet but menacing competitiveness, like that really drives him to be the best of the best. So it's undoubtedly there's going to be some some fans who cease to follow Tottenham because Sonny's left the club. However, there are millions, if not tens of millions more, including myself, who have now fully been pulled into this Tottenham rabbit hole and are going to be Tottenham fans for life. And that is because of Sonny. It really is. There was one at the end of the game, the Spurs played, they showed a fan in the stands at the Seoul Stadium that said, "Thank you, son, for bringing me to Spurs." And that's what I want to say. Thank you, son, for bringing me to Spurs. So, cheers.
Thank you, Terry. Dustin, how are you feeling right now? Because we have lost a superstar here.
Absolutely, and I want to echo what Terry said. It wasn't just for Koreans. I think Son brought a lot of pride to Asians in general. Everywhere that I've gone, Vietnam, Indonesia, whenever Spurs were playing, like it was just the idea that there's someone like, you know, from our part of the world that's making it in the biggest league in the world, and the kind of humility that he brought to just, you know, being a captain, being a player that even opposition team fans, like other than some people from Everton that still hold a grudge over that leg break. But it was just the grace with which, you know, when he gently put that mic down with that interview with Rio Ferdinand that everyone remembers, that he finally won a title for us after 41 years in Europe. And then maybe he allowed himself, okay, maybe I'm a legend. And it took him that long to decide that he deserved that title when we had decided that years ago that that's what he was. Especially when he re-signed that contract when Harry Kane was trying to leave the club. It was like, under Nuno, I'm signing on for an extension, right? And that's kind of the measure of the man, where he wanted to be the person that changed our destiny.
Dustin, of course, players when they played for 10 years at clubs before, I know they don't seem to do testimonials anymore, but surely Son at some point has got to come back to London, to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, to say a proper goodbye to everyone in Tottenham.
Yes, and I believe that the other player that played for 10 years that didn't get testimonial, Vertonghen, should be playing in that testimonial as well. There have been many players that we have kind of unceremoniously let out through the back door. Vertonghen, Alderweireld, many players that we associate all these good memories with that we haven't necessarily had the best goodbyes to. So I think that a testimonial, Tottenham legends, you know, bring him back, bring Vertonghen back, Alderweireld, Lamela for sure, and let Lamela and Romero battle it out. That'll be interesting to see.
Ricky, let's get your thoughts on Son leaving, because as Terry said, I've said this a couple of times in the last 24 hours, it was expected, but I still feel so choked up about him leaving. And it's difficult because I think when you had that great partnership of Harry Kane and Heung-Min Son, and now neither of them are going to be at Spurs, it's going to seem really weird.
Yeah, it is. You know, I mean, it's just one of those. Look, the one thing, and I know we're all emotional, and I know we're all feeling it. You know, every single one of us are feeling it. But like, he gave us everything. He gave us everything. He gave us his sweat, his blood. You know, he played with a broken arm. He played through injury. He was always there to be counted on. He was always there to represent us in the best light. Yeah. And most of all, he gave us his heart, as well as, you know, however much we love him, he loves us too. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's special. And he showed that you didn't have to do it, you know, how some big superstars do it. You know, you didn't have to go out there and buy 17,000 cars and wear big chains or jewelry or be arrogant in the way that you walked in the dressing room or talked to. You know, he looks like the guy that spoke to everybody at the club. He spoke to the chef. He spoke to the gardener. You know, I feel like he had that same respect for everybody. And like, what a guy to have at our club. What a guy to represent the badge. What a guy to kind of through all of our madness, through all of Tottenham's madness, and we have a lot of madness, through all of our highs and lows, through all of our disturbances, for every time that we think that this club was gone or sinking, he was there to be counted, and he was there to be like, no, it's all right, I've got it. Like Dustin was saying there about the contract when Harry Kane was around, when he wanted to leave and Nuno was around, he signed that. When Saudi Arabia came in, he shut it down straight away. He said, no, I've got unfinished business with Tottenham and in the Premier League. I've still got things to do. He could have gone many a time for a larger transfer fee for the club and a larger pay packet, more than likely. But he didn't. He stayed with us. He stayed with us, and he stayed with us for 10 long years and delivered us a trophy. And we've got so many memories of him that, however sad it is, he hasn't, thank goodness, he hasn't passed on. Do you know what I mean? I know it's kind of, we've got that tone going on, but he's still there. He's still smiling, and he's still playing. And he'll go on, and like, good luck to him, man. I'll be watching highlights of LA, FC, if that's where he goes. I'll be watching highlights of that to check on him, and he will always be a Spurs legend. More so because he stuck with us. More so that he done it with humility and heart. More so that he showed every single young football player that wants to become a professional player that there is a different way of doing it. And yes, you can be great, but you can also be kind. You can also be considerate, and you can also give respect everywhere you go. If somebody shows you disrespect, then that's a different argument. But he, everywhere he went, and he also had fire in his belly as well. There was many a time that he kind of had a go and had a shout on the pitch, or the Prime documentary where him and Lloris went at it. There's many a time like that, and I heard, I think it was through Ali Gold. I think I watched it last night or the night before. He was saying that during the final, in the lead up to the Europa League final, when we know what it was like, 22 league defeats, and there was a lot of disarray and there was a lot of dysfunction. And, the energy wasn't great amongst the fan base and on the pitch at times. But he pulled in a meeting with every single player and, reiterated the importance of unity and sticking together. And that there could be something great. There could be something glorious at the end of this. But they had to stick together. There was no point in hiding behind other players or, going off in little cliques. It was about that unity. And so he led with the captain's armband on. He led with everything that he's got. So, thank you so much, man. I think thank you is too small of a word for someone like Son, but thank you so much for those 10 years, for representing us, for always sticking with us, even when we were the butt of the joke. He was still there to be represented, and my goody gumdrops, what a player he is. And it was unlucky he didn't score today, but you could see that he had that bounce in his step and he wanted to do it. And what a way to go out in South Korea as well. I know that's a place that you love, Chris, and you've been many a time, and that is due to Sonny. And to kind of wave goodbye out there at home for him, I think must have been really, really special. And you could see he was holding it together on the bench when he got substituted today. Just thank you, man. Like, I know everyone talks about the Burnley goal, but for me, that Chelsea goal was amazing. It was one of those where, I don't know if you remember, there was a video that came out. I think it was from a fan, but he looked like Sonic the Hedgehog when he was collecting rings, and they kind of like, they put like the speed on his, and the fire on his boots.
I think it was actually Tottenham that put it out.
Was it Tottenham?
Yeah.
One of those, man. It's like there's so many amazing goals and match winners and times that we was out of it that he pulled us back in. So many firsts from him, man. So Sonny, you're a diamond, man. You're an absolute diamond. I love you to bits, and you're going to do great wherever you go. I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see you. Probably next year. Look, you'll probably be pre-season next year, Chris. LAFC. There you go. Or if not, in Korea. LAFC versus Tottenham in Korea. The return of Sonny. There you go. I've sold it.
It's a good point, actually, because whilst coming back to the hotel from the stadium, I did actually think that to myself. Will I ever come back to South Korea? Will Spurs go to South Korea again now Son's left? I know that's a interesting question, but I'm going to ask you all for your favourite memories of Son. I know you've mentioned a couple there, Ricky. I know you've mentioned a couple as well, Terry. But let's, while you're thinking about those moments, let's hear from Heung-Min Son. This is going to probably be his final interview as a Spurs player.
Okay, Sonny, fair to say that was emotional.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment, and it was really emotional. Whew, I'm getting emotional again. Yeah, it's beautiful moments, and yeah, what can I say? Man?
It must be so difficult. Look, you've done 10 years. You've done so much in that time. I can imagine it's quite difficult when it must all just come flooding back when you're standing with your teammates and you're in your home country. It's almost like a perfect moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a perfect moment, and it was really tough, to be honest, in the last couple of weeks. But I think the moments of sharing these beautiful moments, I think is the something that I will never forget, and the something that I will always appreciate it. So, so from the fans, from the players, also from the gaffer, and he understood my situation, and he was always on my side and always listened to me, and then he always asked about my things, what I want to do. So yeah, I think I have a huge respect, and I'm very grateful.
Take us into the dressing room before the game. What was that like? What were you saying to the players?
Yeah, I said exactly the same thing. The players made it a better person, They made me better person than better player, So I'm such a lucky guy that having such an amazing group of players, amazing group of the boys next to me, and feels like they're little my brothers, now. So I just wish them all the best, and they have a 5 competition in their ahead. So I hope. Thank you. I hope they win all the five competition as much as possible, and yeah, that's my wish, and that's my hope, and Spurs will be always my heart, and those boys will be always in my history book. So yeah, I'm very, very glad and very happy.
Just finally, how do you sum up 10 years of Spurs? I mean, what words?
Incredible. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, gone so fast, the 10 years. Some amazing moments, some beautiful moments, and I can only think about the beautiful moments, and amazing moments. So, Spurs will be always in my heart, and I will cheer you, as a family member. So all the best, guys.
Wow. Terry, let's come to you. Beautiful and perfect moment. Do you think that this was the best way of ending Heung-Min Son's career by doing it in South Korea?
Yeah, I don't think he could have scripted it any better, right? I guess the only way you could have scripted it better is if he had somehow scored. But I don't know if that had been the plan all along. Kind of looking back in retrospect, it kind of seems to make sense now. His reaction after the Europa League, his reaction at the parade, and then of course the sadness that we've seen throughout this preseason. But it's I hadn't seen that, so that was it's a little difficult to talk right after seeing that. But he talks about all those beautiful moments. It's there's so many. There's so many times that you just got out of your seat. He got you out of your seat, and he just electrified you. The way that people talk about Bale's best years right before he went to Real Madrid it's the same way that we're going to talk about Son. I mean, Ricky, you talked about that game-winning goal when he had the broken arm and he played the rest of that game. Another one that sticks out to me was Mourinho, Arsenal during COVID, where I think there were 5,000 people in the stands, and he hit that screamer from, it seemed like it was almost from a different country, and it's just, I mean, you would just get out of your seat, and it's the level of delirium that he could elicit out of fans, out of people, the level of joy, but to do it again and again and again and again and again. Just so many memories that we're going to talk about again and again and again. It's just, I can't think of a better use of a statue than thinking of a statue of him hitting his celebration, outside of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. If there's any reason ever to build a statue, it would be to build that outside of, I'm sure every Spurs fan can picture that outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I hope one day we see that and he comes back to help unveil that.
Terry, you mentioned there about Son getting you off your seat and being a superstar for Tottenham in the last 10 years. Another thing I was thinking about earlier is that who in this squad now is our star player? Who's going to get the fans off their seats? And I don't mean this disrespectfully towards any single player in the squad. More of a compliment to Heung-Min Son.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you can name just on one or two hands just the number of players in any sport, whether it's football or basketball, it's just who kind of elicit that type of reaction and really that type of just kind of next level play. So it's the first name that popped into my head when you asked that question. Again, no disrespect, but it might be Kudus. It was kind of fitting that it was Kudus who came on for Son in today's game here. Whether that was meant to be or a little passing of the torch, he has certainly provided some magical moments just in a couple of days here. But like you mentioned earlier, the fact that him and Harry Kane are both gone. I mean, the two of them were two of the best players, and to see them and that connection that they had, and for both of them to be gone, it really just feels like a massive, massive void. I mean, like we turn the page, it's a new chapter in Spurs history, but it really feels empty right now, and I think that's why there's this just somber tone to him leaving.
Absolutely. Dustin, talk through your favourite memories of Heung-Min Son for the last 10 years, because he was just asked there in an interview, how would you sum up the last 10 years? How can you do it within a couple of minutes? And I think all of us could just reel off so many moments, where Sonny has put one in the top corner, like Terry mentioned, against Arsenal, and, really important goals, his experience, his leadership, which I think we're going to really miss, especially in the Champions League next season. But what are your special moments of him?
I think the goal that everyone kind of knows is the Puskás goal where he, basically beats the entire Burnley team. But for me, the most special series of games was the Champions League run when Kane was injured. And that's when everyone thought we're done, right? Because if Kane's injured, how are we making it through this run? But he took the burden of Kane's goal scoring, put it on his shoulders and went, City, I'm scoring 3 past you, right? And basically, he kind of made us not miss the fact that Kane was gone until the final by just stepping up and scoring every time, either scoring goals, creating assists, or pulling players out of position so that they would have the space to score. And it's just the idea that he's played in so many different positions. He's played in left back. He's played up front. He's played left wing. He played on the right for some time as well. He's just never had the ego of, I had to play in my position. He's always played wherever the coach has needed him. And he's always even when sometimes he's been put in a position where he's not playing to his strengths, he's never walked into the manager's office and said, I need to be playing where I play better. So we've seen him play under certain systems where he's not playing to his strengths and struggled, but he's never, thrown his toys out of the pram and gone, I need to play in the position that I'm best at. He's always put that burden onto his own shoulders for the team.
Ricky, let's come to you. Let's get your favourite moments of Son.
There's so many, bro. There are so many, man.
I know.
You know what? We'll speak about the goals all day long. But when he first turned up, and he bought everybody like Korean barbecue. He brought the whole team and the staff and everybody. He brought everybody together with Korean food, and he created a dinner just to like say thank you for coming to Spurs,
which is beautiful, by the way.
Oh yeah, the amount of times you said beautiful in that video, you was cracking me up. But like he done things like that to bring people together, and you see him in the squad, whether they're a 17-year-old Mikey Moore or whether there is the big bruising beast in Cuti Romero. Everybody loves him. Everybody gets a cuddle. Look at him and Pap Sarr. He's always slapping him on the back of the head and troubling him. He's a person that done so much, and I think that's what we're going to miss more. Like, yes, on the field, but off the field as well. What he done to the club, how he kept us as a unit last year. After hearing that from Ali Gold, like he just done he done as much as he always could. I mean, the Golden Boot year as well. How the team worked for him to get that Golden Boot shows you how much love and respect he's got, not only from us, but like from his teammates. And like football's a crazy game. There's a lot of ego in football, and some would argue that you need it. But look how the team, Harry Kane, assisted him how many times that season and went, go on, go get it. You go get it. You go get it. The Wolves game, the very last Wolves game, that Gooner game. There are many games where the team worked for him to go and get that golden boot.
One of the best stories is the one where Kulusevski's talking about it in the podcast, where he's like, "Oh, Son's there. He's going for the golden boot, and he tries to give him the assist and slips over his feet."
Yeah. But it's that, you know what I mean? Like the team wanted it for him. They worked for him. Like who does that in today's world? Even today's world is so self-sufficient, self-centered, and it's people want their individual glories as well. When you actually see that, like it's pretty amazing, and it's very rare, and it shows what type of guy he is, and it's testament to him. It's not just his skill, it's not just his goals or assists. It's the testament as a man, it's the testament of the class and character that he brought to our side, and that he encouraged throughout the team. From young to old, everybody loved him, and we're gonna miss him tremendously. And again, you was chatting about City. When Pep called us the Harry Kane team, and then he ran up to the camera after he scored, and he's like, "What's my name? What's my name?" And I was just like, "Oh, you see that? I love that. I love that. I loved that because he not only done it, for himself, but it was for the team. It was like, this ain't just a Harry Kane. This is a team. Do you know what I mean? Like, and don't ever forget my name again." And Pep never did, because how many goals did he score against Man City? So there are so many classy memories of Sonny, and it's going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of coming from me, because
do you know what though, Ricky? There has been a lot of people in the Spurs fan base who have stated that they've expected this to happen. I think me and you expected this to happen, but they kind of thought that it was the right time for Son to go. But like all of you guys have said, he's a leader on the pitch, off the pitch. He's got vast experience in the Champions League, which of course Spurs are back in the Champions League this season. You know, he still has the quality, in my opinion, to have played for Spurs for another season. We are going to miss him, especially, I know we'll talk about the transfer window, especially if we don't go out and get, you know, who can replace Son? That's another question.
He's irreplaceable, first and foremost. We're gonna go. Yeah. We're gonna have to go in another direction.
It was like who can replace Kane, right? Like it's one of those things. When they are such a colossus at the club, you're never replacing not just the player, but you're never replacing what they mean to the club and everyone in it. So I think that if we try to replace monumental figures like that, it's not realistic. It's just.
But it's fair to say, Dustin, isn't it? A lot of the fan base have played down his leadership qualities.
I think that sometimes, you know, a fan's impression of what leadership is someone like Keane that goes around shouting at people, and they don't really, you know, value the silent leadership, which is supporting all the youth team players, every single player that joins the club, every single new player that joins the club. During interviews, they talk about how Son made them feel welcome, right? And I think that that's the part that of leadership and being a captain that isn't on the screen, isn't easily observable, and that's why it's ignored. But it is one of the things that makes the leadership most invaluable, because that's what gets a player that, you know, maybe is moving to a new country, still finding their feet, and then you've got an older brother captain that's there making sure that everything's all right. You see him at the end of the season, he's always hugging everyone's babies, right? So it's just that kind of like relationship that he has with everyone, where it's not just we're colleagues, it's like we're brothers.
Yeah, Ali Gold had a really good article about his leadership the past few months, how he brought the team together. And not just that, but how he would be kind of the glue between the different cliques within the club. And that when he was out, how Romero tried to emulate Son and tried to be the person who was the glue between the different groups as well. That to me, that really is leadership. You don't have to be rah this and that. You don't have to do things in front of the camera. It's really what you do behind the scenes in leading the team and bringing the team together that makes you a leader. And that's the type of leader that he was.
I know, and that has rubbed off on every single one of the players that he's left behind. Do you know what I mean? They've had Sonny as an emblem for the last 10 years, and those that love him and have played with him, they're gonna have to step up now. And think about that. Think about that for someone like Kuti, who might stay, you know, quiet, or he might stay with some of the people that can speak his language, and he's a bit more comfortable. But now, like you just said there, Terry, you know, when Son was out, he tried to step up in that way. And if he's going to be the one with the armband, then he knows what is needed throughout the side, on the field and off the field, to lead it. And I think it's going to make him a better player. I think it's going to make everybody but that has been around him a better player, because they know the levels and they know the heart and they know what it takes, you know, in your character and in your class. So, as you know, I know he said that everybody made him a better person, but he definitely made everybody else around him a better person too.
He was definitely more vocal as well last season. Very publicly, and I've heard him and seen him shout at the players many times. So he wasn't just a silent leader; he was a very vocal one as well. Before we move on, if you were to choose a favourite goal, if you had one goal to choose, and it wasn't that Burnley one, which one would it be? Ricky, let's start with you.
I'll go with and it's not one of the sexiest goals, but I'll go with the one that got him the golden boot at Wolves. The very last one got put across the box. I think it ended up being Kulu, because Kulu kept trying to find him. So I think it was that one.
Yeah, Norwich
5-0 away.
That one.
Norwich.
Yeah, Norwich. My apologies. Yeah. That one there. I'm gonna go with that one, because he got to lift, you know, and have that trophy for himself, and it was well deserved and long overdue.
Terry, what about you?
Oh, it's so hard to choose. It's so hard to choose one. It's gonna either be between the Arsenal screamer, just because
Oh,
of the reactions from that, or the one that I mentioned earlier, that second Villa goal, just because that the team play and the communication between the three of them, and just knowing that Sonny was going to put it away, and I'll never forget kind of Kane's little glance to the left, knowing exactly where Son was going to be. It's like that's not his best individual goal, but because it was such a great team goal, that I'd say that's my favorite.
And Dustin?
I'm gonna go with one of the goals against City, and it's the one where it almost went out, and then he rescues it, cuts back in, and then scores with his left foot. Because
oh,
first, it set the tone of beating City in the Champions League, and denied City for another few years before they won Champions League. It set us on the path of going to the Champions League final when we were walking around feeling 10 foot tall. And it set the trend for us being City's bogey team for years.
yeah,
So
true.
that was the goal where it wasn't just a great goal from him. It was a goal that I think changed the psychology of the club.
I tell you, you guys are very good keeping to one. I've got four.
What are yours, Chris?
Yeah, what are yours? What are yours?
Mine are definitely, well, Dustin's just mentioned one of them, the Man City one in the Champions League. Such important goals as well, not just
Important.
great goals, but very important ones. The one against West Ham, and I actually spoke to Sonny about this. The one against West Ham at Wembley, absolute screamer. And then, of course, the Chelsea one at Wembley, another fantastic one. And the one that Terry mentioned, I was lucky enough to be there as well against Arsenal. But that trademark finish all the time, cutting in and then top right corner. And he actually done it in training yesterday, which I tell you what, that is probably one of the greatest memories that I've got of this trip, of Son putting that in the top corner, because, you know, people have been saying, you know, a lot of negative comments about Son this last 12 months or so, saying that he's lost a yard of pace, blah, blah, blah. You know, he hasn't got it anymore. And then when I saw him do that yesterday, I was like, oh, yes, he's still got it. Oh, there's no doubt about that. You know, wherever he goes now, he's going to be, you know, their superstar. And whoever he does go to, whether it be Los Angeles or another club, they are really going to enjoy having him, because we know that he can finish.
Chris, tell us some of your favorite memories when you've met him. Tell us a story. Tell us some of the conversations, or, you know, some of your best moments, bro, because you do go home and away. You've been in South Korea many a time. Tell us some stories from your point of view that has got to feel that energy in the crowd every single time and be in and around it.
Ricky, do you mind if I cut in and give you one of my memories?
Go on, yeah.
Like he came to Singapore for the tour. That's where I met Chris. And, you know, I went for the training. I saw him in person, everything. And then he came back again to play against Singapore for South Korea. South Korea destroyed Singapore that day. Like, I think it was like 5-0 or something like that. Might have been 7. But essentially what he did was that... Sorry?
Sorry.
Yeah. You know, but like, you know, a lot of Singaporean fans were there to watch him as well. And what happened was that all of the players were going around clapping the rest of the stadium. But a lot of the Korean players like did maybe 3 quarters, and then they stopped, and then they went back in the tunnel. He went around, and my daughter was there waiting to see him as well. So he went around and made sure that he clapped every single corner of the stadium. My daughter's just waiting there going, what? They're going back? But Son was the only player that was going to do all 360 degrees of the stadium. And she's here.
Aww.
Hello.
Come on, you
Hello.
Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
What I would say, Ricky, is, and I think Dustin and Terry have put this perfectly already, is the fact that this, you know, Son, he is a global superstar. And when I was in Los Angeles many years ago at the preseason tour under Pochettino, we were at a meet and greet, and he come along and he said, I watch you on YouTube. And it was in front of the whole of the Los Angeles Supporters Club. And I said, sorry? And he said, I watch you on YouTube. And it was about that goal. It was about the West Ham goal at Wembley. And it was just absolutely unreal to think that this global superstar had watched my YouTube channel and had remembered me from actually uploading the video, etc. And it was just really surreal. And then the last time I was in South Korea, he actually nudged Ben Davies and said, he's a good guy. He goes all over. So he recognised the fact. And we're talking about this global superstar and actually recognised the fact that I go and watch Spurs all over the place. So whenever I've seen him, he's always been like, you're right. So, but whenever...
Can you imagine if he's like telling everyone, yeah, he's been updating about the stadium. The stadium's almost done.
Yeah, I don't know whether he watched the stadium updates, Dustin. I don't know about that. Or does he watch the 60-second updates? I'm not sure about that. But this global superstar, I tell you what a humble guy. Always got time for people. And I know a lot of people always say this about people. But, someone who's always got a smile on his face, someone who's always had time for the fans, will continue to do that. And he's such an adorable, lovely guy. And you can't say that about a lot of people, and constantly smiling on the pitch as well and off it, and no one's got a bad word to say about him, and that says a lot in life, especially in 2025. No one's got a bad word to say about him at all. I'm really sad. I feel really, really sad, because to not see him around Spurs, I just feel like it's going to be really, really weird, as I said to you. But yeah.
Chris, you have when you're talking about the top bins that curling, yeah. I don't know how I forgot this. So my first time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 2023, with my son, his 100th goal, his 100th Premier League goal was against Brighton, and it was one of the same ones, Perisic to Son in a curler. I was in the north stand, right behind the goal. And it was almost like slow motion. I can still see it now as it leaves his foot. And you're like, oh my God, that's going to go in. Oh my God, that's going to go in. And then the electricity that we felt through our bodies. And that's my first Spurs game live. And to see my hero do that live right in front of me in the first game, unforgettable. So sorry, that has to be number one for me.
And of course, that partnership with Harry Kane, probably... I know we're all going to be biased and say it's the best partnership that we've ever seen in the Premier League, but what a partnership that was. Them two were on fire and they got each other's games. And it's quite sad in a way, actually, that he's not going to be playing the best friendly on, next week with Harry Kane there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I just saw a stat today. I didn't know that Harry Kane assisted Son 24 times and Son assisted Harry Kane 23 times. I didn't know it was that even. That's incredible, right?
Yeah.
But it shows you their kind of telepathy.
Yeah.
They were on the same wavelength.
I think a big part of it as well was that Mourinho season when Harry Kane started dropping back as a 10 a lot, and basically he out Kevin De Bruyne, and that was kind of the season where he probably made up a lot of the deficit, where he started assisting Son a lot more.
You know what? There's so many times, right, that I've been lucky enough to be in the stadium with Chris, and he's gone on to score, but it's the 3 steps before he's gone on to score, because he'll do the step over and it's coming. It's so you get and you're going, and then he'll take the shot, and half of the time I was already celebrating. Half of the time I didn't see it go in the stadium. I'd have to watch it when I get back. But it's just because you knew it was going in. You knew it was a goal. And then I'm not only hugging Chris, but I'm hugging somebody I've never met before. Do you know what I mean? Who's, and they're hugging me back and they lift it. And it's one of those, man. And he just brought us together. And like you say about that electricity, he always done that, man. And Sonny, it's crazy, man. It's crazy to think that today was the last day. And seeing that interview, Chris, my goodness, bro. I didn't see that. I didn't see that interview, his last interview there. And you can see it's in his throat. You know what I mean? His heart is, everything's ready to burst. And, you can see the love, man. And to see that in today's world, especially in a profession like football, where they're showered with loads and loads of money and fame, and for him to love us the way that he does,
that's another thing, Ricky. I'm glad you mentioned money, because he has never ever chased money. He's always loved the football club, and he's always wanted to win a trophy at Tottenham, and he stood by us, through the tough times as well. And bearing in mind, he's played under so many different managers at Spurs, but always stayed with us. And I'm just so glad that he has finished his career on high that night in Bilbao.
And every manager has always said that he is the person that they need to get on board with. And you saw what it meant to him when the final whistle blew and Madison limped over to him after he went down on his knees. Like, after 10 years, it's done.
Yeah. I'm so glad he's finished his career having lifted that trophy, because that would have just been terrible. But yeah.
Chris, you was there in Bilbao when he lifted it. Like, what was it like there, man? Like, what was it like when we've all watched it and we've all got tingles, and if you haven't seen it,
I don't know one fan who was in that stadium in Bilbao, and I'm sure it was at the same for Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and everyone watching at home, wherever they were, floods of tears, everyone emotional, and the fact that we've got over the line, the fact that we've won that trophy, European champions, but ultimately to see Son lifting that trophy, the pleasure and everyone's happiness to see a player that has given so much for this football club to have that smile on his face and show that emotion. It's a mixture of smiles, tears, just pure happiness. So I'm just so glad that he has finished his career at Spurs, having lifted that European trophy, which is, was a very, very special moment. Yeah. Right. Wow. I'm sure that we're going to talk about Heung-Min Son a lot more this coming week, so do look out for other shows. We're almost an hour in, and we're not spoken about today's game yet. So it finished at the World Cup Stadium in Seoul, South Korea. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 1. Brennan Johnson scoring after 4 minutes, and Harvey Barnes equalising for Newcastle in the 38th minute. Now, possession, Tottenham Hotspur had 38% to Newcastle's 62%. And shots, Spurs had 7, 5 on target, 2 off target. And Newcastle had 12, 2 on target and 10 off target. Now, James Madison left the stadium on crutches. And Thomas Frank, as I said earlier, has confirmed that this will be a serious injury. So we don't know at this stage how long he will be out for, but it did look serious. So we will await further news on that in the next couple of days. Ricky, let's come to you first on this game in South Korea. Spurs 1, Newcastle 1. What did you make of it? And also, let's get your thoughts on pre-season so far, because that is now 5 games played, 3 against League One teams, 2 against Premier League teams, and we are unbeaten in these 5 games.
Yeah, unbeaten. What I liked about I think today was Sonny's day. I think it was wrapped up in him, and I think it had the energy in and around the stadium and in and around the game. He wanted to come out and show his best today. You saw he had a spring in his step, and like I say, it was good to see the smile back on his face, because the last couple of weeks in training and some of the photo shoots and stuff, you can see that he hasn't had that smile, and now we know. Now we know why. His heart was breaking. There was there was a decision that had to be made, and now he's made it. So it got to that point. So it was surrounded by that energy. But the way in which we played, I liked the way that we aggressively pressed today. Yes, it was a change side, but we aggressively pressed today. And also, Newcastle is a tough side. Now, we know that, Bruno Guimaraes and Joel Linton in midfield and Dan Burn, they've kicked and elbowed and headbutted a couple of our players in a couple of the last Premier League fixtures, let alone in today's friendly. So it was good for the team to actually go up against some rough and ready players. They've also got pace as well. They also press high. So to see the defensive work against a tough, high-pressing team, I think was good. I think there's still things to work on. I'm not saying good as in I think we done well. There was lots of times where we were out of shape, or we allowed them so much space to run into. So there's still things to check off on the list. But for a preseason game, to take something from it, to learn from it, you can do that. Now Thomas Frank and the boys can go back and analyze that game, especially the first half, first 60 minutes, and show the boys where they've been going wrong and where they're going right. Good first goal from Johnson again. Johnson, ole, ole, ole. So good first goal from Johnson. But I did feel we did let them into the game a bit too quickly. I think like 14, 16, 17 minutes, it was mostly Newcastle. Bit to and fro. But good to see different elements of the Frank system. We can still see the attacking side, that what he would call phase 3, phase 4, I think. So that hasn't clicked as yet, but it's on its way. Our foundations are looking good so far, and all in all, a bit of a bitty game, but a good test.
Terry, let's get your thoughts on the 1-1 draw. I know, like Ricky said, tonight was all about Heung-Min Son, but we've got to discuss the game. That's what we're here for as well. And what have you made of pre-season?
Yeah, honestly, this is the first game that I've seen all the way through. I've only seen highlights of the previous games, just been traveling. So this is my real first look at Thomas Frank ball. And I liked what I saw. I think we look like more of a complete team. We definitely look more resolute in the back. Like Ricky said, I loved the pressing. I mean, that led to that first goal. I thought Archie Gray in particular looks really good pressing. Kevin Danso as well. He was pretty high up in that first half there. I was really glad to see. I don't want to get on this topic too quickly, but I was really glad to see Madison come in because we clearly need that creative spark. We need a 10. We need Madison. We need Kulusevski. And now that we don't have either of them, we need to make a move. It's pretty desperate right now. But overall, I thought that with Thomas Frank coming in, that he would raise our floor, and he has the capability to make, players who are 6 level 7s, who are 7s, 8s, 9s. And I think we're starting to see that. I really like everything that I've seen from Thomas Frank thus far, especially the coaching, not just him, but his staff as well. Just so involved in the game. So overall, honestly, I think Newcastle probably had the better run of play. I think overall they probably played a little bit better. But you can see the progress that's being made with the team, but it really feels like an incomplete team, right? Like not having Adobe there, especially now with Madison not being there, it just doesn't feels like there's just a couple of missing pieces. Solanke as well.
Terry, this is no dig to our previous manager, Ange Postecoglou, or indeed any other previous managers that we've had at the club. But I'll tell you what, in the 2 training sessions that I've been at in Hong Kong and here, I have never seen a Spurs manager talk to the players so much in training sessions. He has got the whistle in one hand, he has got the tactics boards, and he's got paperwork in the other hand. And he is constantly stopping the training sessions because he is constantly wanting to communicate, talk to his players and tell them exactly what is expected. And like you mentioned there, the aggressive press, that is one thing I've been really, really impressed with. Sarah's been great. Danso has also been great in these training sessions. But that level of communication, and as you've just touched on there, it's not just him, it's all of the coaching staff. Yeah. These players must be thinking, wow, at the moment, in my opinion, and this is just what I've seen in these 2 training sessions so far, because if it isn't Thomas Frank running over to a player, it's one of the other coaches, and they're constantly being talked to and properly coached. That is exactly what you just said about, the coaching. We have seen managers before where they have just stood there and they've, even Pochettino, and I love Pochettino, he used to let a lot of his coaches do the work for him. Yeah. But Thomas Frank, quite honestly, yesterday in South Korea, he's literally running around as much as the players. He was running around on the pitch, talking to the players, constantly shouting. And, because of the news about Son, there were moments yesterday in that training session where it was really, really quiet in the stadium. And Thomas Frank was shouting at the players, across the way. And you could hear exactly what Thomas Frank was saying. You could hear a pin drop in that stadium at times yesterday, but excellent communicator. And I've been really, really impressed with his coaching style, especially. Dustin, let's come to you. Let's get your opinion on Thomas Frank, the pre-season so far, and today's game.
So for the preseason so far, I mean, like you said, a lot of the earlier games have been against League One opposition. So I think what we can look at is more, it's getting fitness up to par. And this is the first game or the second game that we played against Premier League opposition. Second again, ole. So having beaten Arsenal in the other game, I think that what we can see from this game is that I don't think we saw the first team play together. And I think that's one of the caveats I have in mind when I look at the way that we were playing. So I like the way that we were pressing. Defensively, we looked a lot more organized, a lot more structured. We didn't look as easy to play through, except for the goal, which I'll get into. But my concern is more with build-up play, and build-up play was a big part of the problems we had last year, where we were playing horseshoe ball, and we were just like on one flank, back to the centre backs, down the other flank, and I think lacking penetration when people play compact against us, because that was the main way to play against Spurs last season. Play compact, they won't play through you because Madison's normally injured, and there aren't enough players that play through the lines. So I think the concern is that our build-up from the back, other than Romero, there isn't a player from the back that makes incisive passes that are going through the center as opposed to going to the flanks. And then we didn't have the runners because we didn't have Udogie, Bergvall, Madison at that point making runs inside. So a lot of the play was, again, going to the flanks. We had a lot of long balls. It seemed that the most frequent ball we would see is a long ball to Johnson that he would try to cut in and make something of. So we've gone from like suicidal build-up at all costs from the back to long punts in midfield, but we don't have the personnel in midfield to win the first or second balls. And then Tel and Sa aren't beating centre-backs in the air. So I think that's my main concern with the way that we've been building up play. We have Kinski, who can play mid-range chips to the wingers, but strangely, we didn't really see that much of it. So I found it interesting that we played Kinski through the entire game for this game as well. And that leads me to the next question, which is Vicario first choice anymore? The other point that I noted was that I think we conceded a lot of possession on the left flank, and whether it was the presence of Anthony Gordon or that Davies was on that flank, because I think that Spence is an excellent one-on-one defender. And I think that whichever flank Spence plays on would likely be the stronger defensive flank, because he takes one-on-one with like the opposing winger as a personal challenge, and I think he's one of the hardest to beat.
Dustin, what do you make of the tactical side of Thomas Frank? Because it does seem that we are going to be playing a lot more pragmatic style under him compared to Ange Postecoglou. Because let me talk about the training sessions again. You know, under Ange, we used to watch the training sessions. They'd end up like 12-all. I remember, meeting you inside the stadium, one of those training sessions, and, there was goals going in left, right and centre. Now, one of the training sessions in Hong Kong, it finished 0-0 when they had their training match. The one yesterday in South Korea ended 1-0, Son scoring the goal. And I take your point on board completely, because I feel like we are lacking that creative edge, especially when we've only scored one goal in 2 training sessions. And now with Son gone, and the likes of Madison and Kulusevski out injured for some time, because Frank has already confirmed that Kulusevski will not make the start of the season against Burnley. And also, he was asked a question, Thomas Frank, about replacements for Son. And he said, well, Matisse Tel, Brennan Johnson and Odebear, they can all play there. Now, one thing that also impressed me yesterday in the training session was Matisse Tel, his deliveries. James Madison actually came out and took a number of corners and a number of free kicks. They were poor deliveries, in all honesty. That is my honest assessment. They were poor. They put Tel out there. He delivered some really, really good crosses. And there was a moment when he actually put the ball down on the corner spot, and all 4 of them were actually on target. They were going in. I think one of them he actually scored. But the creative aspect from Spurs, is it the case now of he's got to look to what he's got, or do we desperately need some new signings in?
We desperately need new signings in. And the reason I say that is I don't know if we've confirmed it, but we're getting Palhinha in. that is a midfielder we have. Excellent destroyer. We need that kind of player. But if you're going to have a player like that, you're going to have to balance off the fact that he is a simplistic passer. He will not lose you the ball. If you pass him the ball, he might pass it back to where it came from. You're not getting creativity from Palhinha. That's not what he's for. If you're going to get Palhinha in, and your other midfielders are Bentancur, Bissouma, not much creativity there. Our creative midfielders are Madison, injured. Bergval also seems injury prone, don't know, also very young. So, I mean, unless you're saying that we're relying on the kids, literal teenagers for all of our creative play, Odegaard looked promising, but also injured last season. We can't be relying on injury-prone players or teenagers for all our creativity. We need someone that's like when we had Ericsson, right? We had a player that rarely got injured, was creative, was always doing something about. When we had Modric, we had someone that would never lose the ball, frequently would, outside of the boot passes, free up a player. We don't have a metronomic creative player in the midfield playing balls through the center. We can't keep relying on going to the flanks. That worked early on in Ange Ball, where you go to the flanks and you cut it back. But then everyone learned, keep it compact. They can't do anything if you are cutting back into a block of 8. So we need someone that can pick the lock, and we don't have anyone that isn't permanently injured or a teenager that can do that right now.
Dustin, from what you've seen, under Thomas Frank so far in these pre-season games, what have you made of us defensively? Have you been impressed?
We have been a lot more solid defensively, but I think the caveat is that defensively under Ange Ball, we were very easy to cut through. For the goal, I felt that we allowed them through the center far too easily. We were sliced through like a knife through butter. And I believe the signing of Palhinha will do some good in mitigating that, because we haven't had an enforcer in midfield for a long time.
Yeah.
Not since Højbjerg left, and everyone had issues with Højbjerg and his turning speed of a barge. But I think that you do need a player that you either have players like Dembele that can do everything, but those are hard and expensive to get, or you have specialists that do a certain role really well, and that frees up 2 other players that maybe can be creative players. So you either pay a lot of money for players that are unattainable because City would have bought all of them, or you pay for specialists that do one thing well and then pass it to the players that can make something happen.
Ricky, as I mentioned right at the start, João Palhinha has just started following Tottenham on Instagram, and we're expecting deal to be done this week. So hopefully we will get an announcement very, very soon. I completely agree with Dustin. This is the number 6 that we've been crying out for the last couple of years. A yellow card merchant, an excellent DM for Fulham in the Premier League. Of course, got Premier League experience, international player with Portugal, and he is an aggressive tackler. And as we've all mentioned so far on the podcast, that Thomas Frank in his system, and as I've seen in these training sessions, he likes aggressive pressing. He likes aggressive tacklers. He's going to fit perfectly in this system, isn't he?
I think it's going to be fantastic for us, mate. Good age, good experience, Champions League experience in Germany, as well as Premier League experience. We saw what he done in the Premier League at Fulham. Went for a lot of money to Bayern Munich and had a couple of injuries, but also had a change in manager and a change in system where maybe he wasn't the right fit for company. But I think he could be fantastic for us, not only for this season, but I think that even guiding Archie Gray in that role, in that type of way, and like Dustin was saying there, like a specialist in that position, I think it could really help Gray develop into the all-round midfielder that he's going to be. Gray has a bit of everything. It's up to him to grow and to kind of put his mark on the team. But someone like Palhinha in there, like I say, with his age and experience, could be fantastic. I mean, today's goal, like Dustin was saying, today's goal doesn't really happen if Palhinha is there. He's taking out some legs, if not taking the ball with it. Do you know what I mean? So I think moments like that, we've missed a specialist in the midfield. And I think he'll be a welcome addition on loan as well. So if it doesn't work out, then absolutely cool. He goes back to Bayern. If it does work out, maybe Levy asks for another loan. And you know, because he is, what is he, 30, 31 now? Oh, no, he's just turned 30, I think.
Yeah.
So, or if you want to go for a big monster number 6 next year and spend some serious money, then you've got an experienced player on loan for the season who can do a job, do a good job, a job that we've been looking for a very long time, in the Premier League and in the Champions League. And then you can go and spend next year's money on a younger version of that, or a ball playing destroyer. You know, maybe you can find the perfect fit next season. But it does free up the funds as well. The 60 million that we was going to spend on Morgan Gibbs White still hasn't been spent, so that's in there. So now we can really concentrate our funds on, hopefully, you know, someone who can play in that 10 role, and a striker if and when Richarlison goes, if he goes, you know. But definitely we need another striker up there, because you can see what we're missing. Tell today, I think he plays better with, if there was a 2 up front. If he's going to play up front, I think he would play better with a 2 up front, with Solanke alongside him, who can do the hold up play, who can be the target man, who can bring him into play. And it was, you know, unfortunate that he didn't score today. He was through on goal, and that was an opportunity to make his mark in pre-season. But you're absolutely right about his delivery on the left wing. He's got fantastic delivery there. So Tel is very young. Yes, we've spent big money on him, but he's very young. And I think little bit by little bit, he will get to where he was going to be. Just remember what a lot of people were saying, a lot of fans were saying after the first season that Sonny was here, that he can't do it in the Prem. You know, he's too lightweight. You know, there was a ton of excuses, and there was a ton of criticism after Sonny's first season here. And it took Pochettino to sit down with him and go, no, you stick with me, sunshine, and it will be glorious. And thank goodness he did. Thank goodness he stayed. And look at that. So never write off a player, especially a young one coming into the league with high potential. You know, so there is a lot to go through there. But yeah, definitely we need a creative spark. I know Eze's still on the market. Xavi Simons still hasn't been purchased by Chelsea, but how many players can Chelsea get? I don't know. So yes, there's definitely a big creative
surely
pocket.
Ricky, I was going to ask you about Eze, because surely, you know, it's a no-brainer. And I think me and you have had this conversation for the last couple of transfer windows, or the last couple of years actually, about Eze. It seems a fairly easy deal to get done. You know, we've got that £60 million sitting there that Spurs were going to spend on Morgan Gibbs White. That's exactly what it would take. They apparently will take 3 instalments of £20 million, which will suit Spurs down to the ground. What are we waiting for?
Get it done. Or maybe we were waiting for Sonny to depart, but that's not really the way that you do business. Like, get it done. Eze, I think, would fit that role. Again, age, profile, experience, you know, somebody that he does have a few injuries here and there. I know he was injured last season for a little bit, but rarely gets injured for too long. Very strong on the ball, likes to win it back high up the pitch, can find a player, can score, you know, and also can be put out onto the left wing if need be. So it's an easy no-brainer. I'm with you, Chris. And also, Chris, as well, there's been a lot of talk about paying big money for centre-backs. Like, I keep hearing it, but I dismiss it. I'm like, we've got enough. You know, Kevin Danzo's been playing well ever since he's turned up. Strong, big, aggressive, quick. You know, he's done the job for us many a time. You've got Vuskovic has just come in, who looks like a Rolls Royce of a defender. He looks tremendous as a defender. And yes, he's still young, a lot of development to go, but he's there. We've still got Davies there, who can play left centre-back, left back. You know, Romero and Mickey, as well as Dragusin to come back. So there's a lot of centre-backs. So where I keep seeing, you know, Zabani from Bournemouth, or there was another one the other day, I can't remember, but I keep seeing them, but I dismiss them. And I think that the defence is kind of set, unless we're getting a left back that can cover for your doggy. I think that the back line is set. We need to be spending further up the field in those number 10s, in another striker, and making them big purchases, going for it. You spoke about replacement for Sonny, and he already. I say you can't replace him, but if anybody was going to take the mantle for me, it was, and I can never say the guy's name, but it was Kvaratskhelia from PSG. He's playing for PSG now, but when he was at Napoli, I was like, well, if anybody's going to be that type of player, it's got to be him. But he's already gone. You know, people are talking about Rafael Leao, very good player, but I would look at the work rate of a player in Thomas Frank's team. That I think would have to be, you know, questions and due diligence would have to be done on that. But, you know, we do need these big boys, you know what I mean? Dynamite players, dangerous players that the oppositions are a bit fearful of.
Yeah.
We need them in the side, because one injury and you know, we start panicking.
Yeah, well, apparently Spurs are after another forward player, and they want another fullback that could be versatile, you know, to play on either side, but most importantly, cover for Destiny Udogie. No concrete links to centre backs, and I feel like those reports are still being published because of the Romero links to Atletico Madrid, etc. So can't see him moving anywhere now, because of course he'll be the next Tottenham Hotspur captain. It has just been confirmed by the overlap on Sky that Daniel Levy will actually be on there tomorrow, on Monday. So do look out for that, because Gary Neville will be questioning him, I've no doubt at all. So hopefully he has put some good questions in.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So look out for that.
Will they be talking about wine?
Well, when's the beer review of South Korea, Dustin? When can we do that podcast?
I don't know what beer. I don't know what beer you're talking about. I'm having shoju, so
Yeah.
Right, Terry. Let's come on to you. Let's talk about the starting 11 today, because only 4 players kept their place in the starting 11 that faced Arsenal in Hong Kong. So it was Kinski, Porro, Danso, Romero, Davis, Bentancur, Gray, Sarr, Johnson, Tell, and Son as captain. And the subs this evening: Vicario, Austin, Gunter, Spence, Van der Ven, Byfield, Vlaskovic, Abbott, Basuma, Bergvall, Madison, Donnelly, Yang, Odegaard, Kudus, Richarlison, and Lancashire. Overall, Terry, what do you make of the starting 11 this evening against Newcastle in Korea? And what do you make of the way that Thomas Frank has basically, you know, dished out minutes to every player for fitness? Because at this stage of the pre-season now, we've got one left, Bayern Munich away next week, and then it is the Super Cup final. So I'm sure that Bayern Munich game next week, we will basically see virtually the 11 that are going to face PSG the following week, wouldn't you thought?
Yeah, and I'm curious who that 11 is going to be, because there's been so much rotation in this. I think what's surprising about this graphic here, the two that stood out was Richarlison not starting, and then Kinski starting as well. I have to say that I was really impressed with Kinski's distribution. I think we all knew that his ball skills, but he had one over the top ball to Son in particular that was very, very impressive, and I don't think you see that from Vicario. So I feel like it's a little bit up in the air in terms of who is going to be our number one. With Tel, I'm glad that you gave us that anecdote about seeing him in practice and on those corners, because I'm just not sold on him. Ricky, I hope you're right. I hope this is one of those, like, it just took him a year to adjust, and this is the year that he breaks out. I'm not fully convinced by him. I'm not fully convinced by Odegaard. I'm definitely not convinced by Brennan Johnson on the left. It's Thomas Frank seems to be really comfortable with that front line there, but I don't think we have an established left winger anymore that we can start week in and week out. Especially since this Morgan Gibbs White thing went through with Eze. Honestly, we've talked about it for so long. There must be something wrong with him. he must be scheduled for an amputation or something in a few weeks. I don't know why we or Arsenal haven't pulled the trigger on him. I mean, we have the money to do it. Just not just play style, but even just character-wise, he's such a good guy as well. He would be such a perfect fit for Tottenham. If it's not him, I haven't heard any links to this guy, but I think about the type of player that we would need. It's Ricky, you mentioned Lau and Kvaratskhelia. It's Kvaratskhelia, obviously that isn't attainable. I don't know how attainable Lau is, but Mitoma on Brighton, I think would be absolutely perfect for this team. I think he would have been perfect under Postecoglou. I think he would have been perfect even before that. I don't know why we aren't linked with him, but with this Madison injury, I think we have to make a splash on something, whether it's a 10, whether it's even Lucas Paquetá, who I think, I don't know if he's, choice number one, but we need some kind of creativity through that middle or some kind of spark on that left-hand side there. And then just kind of going back to Palhinha really quick, out of all of those positions, I do think that was the most important need to fill. I wish I had been Wharton, but it doesn't look like that was a reality. But when I think back to the Fulham Palhinha, even just a couple of years ago, I remember two players that would always kind of jump out on the screen to me in terms of their play would be Moises Caicedo and João Palhinha. Just that nastiness. We've always talked about how we have this soft underbelly, right? And Romero's the only one who really has that nastiness that you want. To have Palhinha in front of Romero, oh gosh, if we can get even 80% of the Fulham Palhinha, 90% of the Fulham Palhinha, it's just what the doctor ordered.
It's a good point, Terry, because Thomas Frank is certainly going to make Spurs a harder team to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we needed. It's just like we can't have these avenues down the middle. We can't just always be the nice guys, right? Like you have to have some of that nasty edge to the team, and I think that's what he brings in the best way possible. I don't care that he's not the most creative passer. He does have a good shot on him. He's scored some great goals. But in terms of providing that spine right down the middle, and being a great example for those around us, for those around him, I think he's exactly what we need. And it certainly looks like we aren't going to have a lot of 4-3 games or 5-4 games. But yeah, I don't care. Winning is more important than winning pretty for me.
We need to shut Dr. Tottenham's clinic down.
Absolutely, Dustin. Yes.
And everything is built from a solid foundation. So he's building the right way. Do you know what I mean? He's building from the bottom up. The fact that the goalkeepers are even competing, I think, is a healthy thing. I think Vicario's always fought for his position and fought for the right to play, and loves a bit of a fight. And Kinski has been born in the kind of goalkeeping where he's comfortable playing with his feet. So there is healthy competition in those positions right now, and I think it's only going to benefit us moving forward. So starting from a solid base, which we've seen a lot more structure in our play, a lot more solidity, a lot more unity in our play. I think a lot of last year as well, our attacking, even though we wasn't a quote unquote attacking team, it wasn't clicking for various different reasons. But that's the last bit again. We need to get that attacking clicking. I think that's the last thing to come. And a competitive game where there's a big trophy up for grabs, it better come out all out in that game. So we've still got a little while. Yeah.
Ricky, there's some breaking news because Spurs have just had another trophy cabinet delivered based on the trophy we've won in 2025. I got you there, didn't I?
You did. I thought we had breaking news.
It was all serious.
I was?
Sorry, too much beer. Terry, let's stay with you because let's talk about the goal. I'm going to pick out a few match instances here. Now, it came from Spurs pressing. this goal. And of course, it was a very, very good finish from Brennan Johnson. And of course, as Dustin mentioned earlier, the whole crowd, the Spurs end certainly was singing Johnson again, which is a great moment. He absolutely loves it. But this was a typical Thomas Frank goal with the pressing, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Danso that really provided the spark here, and they got it to Johnson. I thought it was a really smooth finish. If you look back on the replay, it did deflect off of Dan Burn. I don't know if it would have gone in without the deflection, but I did love the immediate reaction and the getting the shot off. At that point in the game, the positive intent, especially from all of that pressing, just looked really, really good. Tottenham looked like the better team at that side at that point.
When Dustin, let's come to you on this. Brennan Johnson, we know that he can finish. He scored a number of goals last season. A lot of Spurs fans are quite critical of Brennan Johnson because they want to see him do more. Now, we know that Thomas Frank is, gets the best out of players. Do you think we're going to see a better version of Brennan Johnson this coming season? And interesting how he said that Brennan Johnson could play on the left. Do you see that happening?
That doesn't strike me as his best position. Just because if you're playing on the left, that presumes certain things, which is that whether he plays on the left or the right, he ends up going towards the corners unless he's sneaking in without the ball. So Brennan Johnson out of possession going in to shoot is very different from Brennan Johnson on the ball. I think everyone is, I wouldn't say happy, but they're pleasantly surprised that he's our top goal scorer because they don't see him ghosting in for the goal, neither do the opponents. That's why he does well. He does well because he arrives late to the box, he times his runs well, and whenever he's watching the game, he's always looking for when he can sprint into the box to be there for the final ball. So that's what Brennan Johnson does. And I think a lot of the criticism that he's had is just around the expectations of what we think a winger should do. A winger should beat his man, chalk on the boots, but players like that don't exist anymore. That is kind of like an archetype of maybe 2 tactical generations ago. That may come back in the future because, tactics always shift because every team plays a certain style. And then some manager evolves a style that beats it, that sometimes, it's inverted wing backs or it's like, center backs that attack. So I think that the main thing that we have to be aware of is Brennan Johnson's attributes are good at timing runs, good at arriving late to the box and ghosting in, good at finishing. Don't expect him to beat his man. That's not what he's there for. Like, look to Kudus to do that. Look to Odebear to do that. That's not Brennan Johnson's role. I think that if you're expecting Brennan Johnson to do anything other than finish, you're kind of going to be disappointed because it's not his strength. But that said, you also have to bear in mind what the weaknesses are. And a lot of the weaknesses people had issues with was his defensive work rate. But the reason he's there in the box to finish is because whenever there's a 50-50 ball or we're in transition, he's running forward or backwards. So when we concede a goal because Brennan Johnson's not picked up his man, you can't blame him because he is trying to score a goal or position himself to score a goal. That means sometimes when we turn the ball over, he's not going to be there in time to chase back his man. So it's kind of how the team has to adapt to that. And I think that we see that with Danso now. The reason we see Danso so far up the pitch and winning balls and turning balls over that people can attack is because when Danso goes up, Sar or someone else is covering for Danso. So I think that what Frank is doing is that he's allowing people to play to their strengths. And that if that means that you go out of position, someone else will cover your position because your aggression is better at winning the ball. Your positioning is better at being in an attacking position. And that tactical fluidity is a short-term tactical fluidity that allows you to be at your strength in this part of the field, and someone will cover you until you can make it back.
Dustin, in the 18th minute, Matisse Tel had a glorious chance, one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper stood up well, ended up saving the shot with his left foot. Now, surely a player who has just cost this amount of money for Spurs, should be bearing these sorts of chances. And I'm also going to add the fact that Sky Germany, when Bayern Munich sold him to Tottenham, originally on loan, they come out and said, Matisse Tel is a number 9. Play him as a centre forward, not as a winger. What do you think his best position is? And surely he's got to be finishing that sort of chance.
We are not taking tactical advice from big forehead Pletigo, okay? I'm not taking tactical advice from you and your 7-inch forehead. So Matisse Tel is a decent player. He is a teenager. So he is going to be skittish under pressure, and it'll take time. He just needs to get confidence. He just needs to be put in that position enough times, go through enough training, and he'll mature. He's 19, so he will get there. But that goes back to my point, which we shouldn't be relying on teenagers and people that are always injured. So for our creativity, that's where our problem has been. We have had good players that can do that role, but last season they were injured most of the time, or they were teenagers and not mature enough to be able to do it consistently over the 60 games a season that we're playing now. I think the biggest thing that we have to contend with now is that we're in the Champions League. So the squad size and the quality of the squad is going to need to increase exponentially. As much as we love the Europa League win, there were games we could rotate in the Europa League because a lot of the teams we played in the league were pants, and we're not going to have that luxury in the Champions League. So the recruitment that we have got this cash injection for, it needs to happen now. If you're not going to do it now, after you've lost Son, after you've got the Champions League, through miraculously winning the Europa League, even though you were 17th in the league, if this is not the time to spend, I don't know when.
Ricky, let's come to you. On 23 minutes, Joe Linton headed against the post. Newcastle had quite a few opportunities. I won't go through them all, but in the 38th minute, they obviously got their equaliser through Harvey Barnes. What did you make of the goal? Kinski, I'm sure he will be very disappointed being beaten at his near post.
Yeah, he will be disappointed. But that training, there was a training video that came out not too long ago where they had the mini goals and they were doing the sliding tackles and they were trying to block shots and stuff like that. Yeah. I kind of felt that we let Harvey Barnes in here. I felt there was a big gap. If you look behind Porro right now, you can go left or you can go right. Yeah, and find a gap. And I think that Romero, this was on a break. It was a goal on a break, so we wasn't in line. And I think if Romero was back as well as Van der Ven, but I think if both of them were back a little bit at the same time as Porro, I think we could have blocked that off a little bit more, a little bit better. But very clean strike from Harvey Barnes. Yeah, Kinski's going to be disappointed with conceding that goal. But this is what preseason's about. This is what it's about. You can't have it all your own way. It's not. You're not going to come up against, League One every week, even though both of those games were draws. These are the challenges that you face. It's about what you take away from this. So and we know that Frank's got the tactics board out and they've got an analyst and they do the videos and stuff like that. So when they go back and analyze this, these are moments where you can say, you see what happens if we come out of shape. You see what happens if we switch off for a moment and we're not as a unit and defending as a unit. These things and these goals we can concede. So it's something definitely to work on, and something definitely the boys can learn from.
Now, in the 54th minute, a great ball over the top of the Spurs defence. Gordon then with a delightful finish, and then it was disallowed. Terry, let's come to you. Richarlison had a glorious chance, one-on-one with the goalkeeper. He put it wide, and I must say, Richarlison is one of the most funniest guys in the Spurs squad. I know Gary was on the podcast the other night and saying that he loves the fact that he puts all these wind-up, Instagram posts up, winding the Arsenal players up, etc. etc. And he is such fun in training. Like yesterday's training session, he's on the back of Kevin Danso. He's getting everyone laughing and joking around, but his finishing for me is just really, really frustrating. In Hong Kong, the training session, he missed, he had the two best chances in that training session. He put one over the bar, one wide. And it's interesting as well that Thomas Frank didn't include him to be playing on the left as well. What I mentioned earlier about Tel Johnson and Odebear. So he obviously sees him solely as a number 9. At any point, are we going to see a dramatic change in Richarlison's finishing? Because I think sometimes his all-round play is okay, but his finishing just needs improving.
Yeah, I mean he's really streaky, because we have seen when he is a better finisher. Like he had that one stretch last year where he scored, I forgot how many goals in 10 games or so. It's interesting to hear Thomas Frank talk about him, because it certainly feels the way that Frank talks about him, that he's here to stay. I think we all kind of assumed that he would be on his way out. If we got an offer, that we would let him go. But the way that Frank talks about him makes him seem like he's going to be an integral part of the team, and I'm okay with it, to be honest. It's especially with Solanke being out right now. We do need 2 number 9s here, and I guess he views him as a number 9. I don't know if we're ever going to see that Everton Richarlison. I don't know what it is with him and us, in terms of his commitment to the team and kind of the personality that he adds to the team. Like you talked about, it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and I think he just needs a stretch where he can stay healthy, where he gets a regular run of games weekly, whether it's Champions League or whether it's Premier League, and we're gonna have plenty of games to go through. I think he just needs to get in a groove where he feels comfortable. He knows what positions he's going to play. He's going to play the same position week in and week out, to just get some of that muscle memory back and get some of that finishing back. It's like I have hope. I have hope for him, but it's frustrating is the way to say it. Yeah.
But Terry, like Roy Keane would say, do your job. Do your job. As a striker, he doesn't do his job, and I always have this feeling within my chest, like I was talking about earlier about Sonny, right? The 3 step overs, as he's touched the ball, I already know it's a goal. Well, I have the opposite feeling with Richarlison. When he's there one-on-one or he's got an opportunity, my heart tells me, you know what, he's going to miss. And if he scores, it's more of a surprise than it is for me to go, all right, then cool. If he makes an impact, that's the least that you can do for the amount of money that we paid for him. Even today, he was pulling the shirt of Nick Pope. For what? Like, at one point, he was just like, on it, for what? And then got a silly yellow today. Like, for what? So, yes, it's great that you come in, and it's great that you put yourself about a bit and create some havoc, and might get a yellow card and fall over and complain to the ref that it was a foul or something. But we need more as a centre forward, as a striker, and as a winger from the players. Do you know what I mean? I'm really happy that he can put out a tweet and crack a joke, and he's got a smile on his face. But I'd love him to score more goals than tweets. Do you know what I mean? Like, we need him to do the job, and we've held him. We've held him, and we've looked after him through times of mental health struggles, through times of injuries. The comeback, the fall off, the comeback, the fall off. My heart kind of says to me, while he's fit, if you can get a fee, and I'm talking any fee, if you can get a fee, let him go and let's go again.
But let's go on. Let's say hypothetically we get 40 million from a Saudi team from him. The thing about that number 9 position, there are no options as a replacement out there right now. There aren't, like the I'm
sure there is, Terry. I'm sure there is.
I think the bigger
it's his job. He's got to be scoring. He's got to be scoring some of these opportunities. He has to. It's his job.
I think the bigger problem is that he wouldn't accept 40 million from Saudi either. He doesn't want to go to Saudi. It's a World Cup year. He wants to. The Richarlison. He thinks he's a different player.
Yeah.
He doesn't think he's a player that's struggling to get into Spurs. He thinks he's a player that should be playing in the Champions League. So he's not going to Saudi.
Yeah.
And we're not going to, like, no one else is going to pay the kind of money that Daniel Levy will accept for him. So it just feels like one of those things that years later we'll be like, oh yes, oh he's still playing for us? Well, oh, we've cancelled the contract. It feels like that kind of deal.
Would you guys prefer someone like Jonathan David to Richarlison?
We can get Vlahovic for 13 million right now. Do you know what I mean? They're putting him on the table for 13 to 15. I'll take a gamble on Vlahovic. Jonathan David, we could have got him on the free. Has he not signed for somebody yet, Tel?
He's trying to go to, I think it's Olympique Marseille, but there's some issues. There's some issues with it. Vlahovic has really struggled. I mean, Arsenal was linked with him for years. He was fantastic at Fiorentina, but then with Juventus, it just hasn't been the same.
No, it hasn't. But I think he still scored more than Richarlison. Richarlison has never scored more than 13 goals. He's never scored 13 in a season.
Right.
Like ever. Like since he's been in England, So I know I'm sounding harsh, but I don't know when he's going to become the person that, like Dustin said there, the person that he's tattooed on the back, on his own back, alongside Neymar and Brazilian Ronaldo.
Right.
So I would love it to happen, but I just don't believe it. Do you know what I mean? And there are other strikers out there. I really want Openda is who I want from RB Leipzig. I think he's the type of tricky, pacey, running behind winger striker that would do really, really well for Tottenham. So my fan favorite would be Openda. I don't even know whether he's up for sale or not, but that would just be my shout. But he needs to do his job, man. He really does. And if he's missing 2 in training, if he's missing in training, where are we going here? Do you know what I mean? I'm like,
the point that you make about being surprised when it goes in, that is a really good point. Because it's I unless it's heading, which I think he does bring a different dimension with his heading, which I think is really, really good. But with his feet, you really don't have any confidence that it's going to go in.
And when he does assist, he injures himself doing so. So it's like,
yeah.
Right, I've got 2 final questions for you all. I'm going to tell you the second one, but we'll come round again. I'm going to tell you the second one because I want you to think about it. So the first one that we'll discuss now is James Madison's injury, injuries in general, and the transfer window. What must Spurs do as an absolute minimum in the next 30 days in order to fight on all fronts? Like Daniel Levy has come out and said, remember those words, we want to win the Champions League, we want to win the Premier League, and we want to fight on all fronts. So what do Spurs need as a minimum in the next 30 days? And the second one, what I want you to think about while we're discussing the first one, is what do you think the starting 11 will be for the Bayern Munich game? Bearing in mind that will be the final pre-season friendly before we play the Super Cup final against PSG. So, Terry or Ricky, let's start with you. So, James Madison's injury, of course, he's only just come back from injury. This is a huge blow to Thomas Frank. It looks like a serious injury. He could be out for some time. Dejan Kulusevski, as I mentioned earlier, is not going to be fit and available for the start of the season, so he's going to probably miss the first 2 or 3 games of the season at least. What do Spurs need to do in the transfer window? I know me and you have discussed this many times about ambition. Now, we're trying to get Morgan Gibbs-White. We've also spoken about Eze. You've also listed a whole number of players. But, what is realistic? What Daniel Levy has come out and said, we want to be fighting on all fronts. What's realistic? What do we need to do?
Madison's injury is a massive blow. The fact it was a bit innocuous, it was just offered a turn and then he's jumped and it's gone. It looked, and it's the knee again. So if I was going to guess, he's out until at least Christmas, January. I think that's a reoccurrence. I think that's That's a really horrible one. And the thing is with Madison, I think that he is the type of player like Damsgaard at Brentford. He is that type of player for Frank. So I think Frank was actually looking forward to working with Madison. It's just a shame that he's had a reoccurrence of this injury, and it looks like it's going to be a long time out for him. So we're going to need to spend some big money. We're going to need to spend some big money, whether that's on the transfer fee itself or the wages. But go out there and do what we always say, you know, go and get the experience, go and get the level that is going to take us higher. Like Dustin and Terry have said as well, it's like you can't just throw all your eggs into one basket and hope that a 17-year-old is going to carry you through. You know, Bergvall, for instance, he looked a lot stronger. He looks like he's been in the gym over the summer. I felt Tel looked a lot stronger. He was getting moved off the ball a lot more last season. So he's been in the gym a lot more. So they are getting stronger. They are getting a bit more aggressive in holding the ball, but that also takes time. You know, you're going to need a version of Palhinha up front, a 26, 27, 28-year-old who can play in that number 10 striker or the number 10 and the winger. So we're definitely going to need some big money. I would say at least 3 signings, left back cover, number 10 and striker, or that 10 that can play on the wing as well. Do you know what I mean? That looks lovely, Dustin. But yes, so I think that 10 that can play on the wings, but mostly the 10 striker and a left back. And I think we're going to have to spend big. We've got 60 mil that we haven't spent. They were talking about 70 mil for Sabani. So we've got a lot of money there, plus the investment coming in. Come on, you Spurs, go and get the big boys. Go and act like a big club and make it happen.
Yeah, like you said, I feel like there's so much more to do in this transfer window if we do want to genuinely fight on all fronts. Terry, what about you?
So on Madison, I think you could make the argument that there is no player we could afford to lose less at this point, given our depth, than Madison. It's either Madison or Solanke at this point. So honestly, I think it's devastating. When I saw that happen and when he was stretchered off, as emotional as the day already was, it got even more emotional. Personally for him, because he's such a great guy and such a team player, I'm devastated for him because it could be longer than Christmas, Ricky. I mean, it sounds like it's really, really serious. And who knows how long it's going to take for Kulusevski to come back. Not just to come back, but tend to kind of get back to the Kulusevski that we all knew and loved, the one from the first half of last year. So yeah, like having a direct replacement for them, that is a game changer. Whether that's Eze, whether that's Paquetá, whether like we need to break the bank. Like I don't think we can mess around anymore. There's just I don't know what's been going on because it is a little frustrating with Longa, right? Because it's so quiet, but then you get the big one. Gosh, how perfect would have Morgan Gibbs-White have been? I mean, man, I don't want to peel back old wounds, but honestly, I was more excited about him than I would have been about Eze. That just came out of nowhere. But at minimum, that number 10, definitely the left back cover. Someone on that front line, I think Wissa would be perfect just because he can play in the middle and on the left. I mean, we've talked about the need for someone at both positions. So someone who has that flexibility. I think Openda has that flexibility as well. I from what I know, that he usually plays on the left, but again, we've heard zero links with Openda. So I wouldn't mind if we went for Wissa as well, but 3 at a minimum. Ideally 5, but we know that's not going to happen.
Terry, can I ask you very quickly? You mentioned about Johan Langer and not hearing or seeing many links. What do you actually prefer as a Spurs fan? Because under Fabio Fraschi, we always used to be linked with so many players, and the media just had a field day in saying Spurs were linked with him. And under Johan Langer now, you know, he completely does everything under the radar. You don't really hear anything, and then it's bang. You know, Spurs are in for Morgan Gibbs-White, and then suddenly it was, here we go, Spurs going to pay £60 million. Do you prefer it like that, where you just get the news straight away, or do you love all that speculation?
Both are awful. I hate both. I hate both because with Paratici, you get your hopes up about 26 times a day, right? Like you're always checking the news and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. In 99 times out of 100, something doesn't happen, and finally something will come through. Whereas Langa, you're also checking the news 100 times a day and hearing nothing. So you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, nothing must be going on, and then you get this great surprise. Transfer season just in general is awful. It's awful. It's so exciting when it actually happens. I feel like we're the only ones who can get a here you go from Fabrizio, and it turns out to be just kidding. I mean, has that ever happened before? Come on. We're the only ones who have to go through that emotion.
We're the only ones that have like Willian like literally in our training ground and then whisked off to Chelsea instead, right? Like
yeah. So
in the transfer window, we're permanently sitting in the cup chair.
In the what chair?
In the cup chair.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but I don't know if I want to know what that means, but it can't be a good thing. But yeah, Chris, because transfer season, it's so anxiety ridden too, because we know what our needs are. There's options out there, or there aren't options out there, and we just want to feel whole, right? And it seems like every summer, every winter, we always just have a couple of holes we haven't quite filled yet, and we're still there right now.
Well, what is it? We're 9 days away from the Super Cup final. So are any of you sitting here really confident that we're going to beat PSG with the squad that we've got? Because I think all of us are in agreement that you need a lot bigger squad in terms of quality and real depth as well. Dustin, let's talk to you about the transfer window.
I believe we're more likely to beat PSG than lose to Macclesfield.
Beat PSG and then lose to Burnley, yeah?
Macclesfield, like something like League Two.
But for you, what's realistic in this transfer window? Because of course we have to be realistic about it. But when your chairman comes out and says we want to be fighting on all fronts, surely they've got to go and back the manager in a big way.
I don't take what he says seriously anymore, because honestly, so like the reason I don't fixate on particular players in the transfer window is there are so many things that need to align. The stars need to align. The player needs to agree. Maybe the agents in this year, the agent makes more money selling to a different club. The clubs need to agree. So there's so many things that happen. Sometimes we blame the club for not making a signing when something else fell through, and we'll never know because all this doesn't happen in public view. So I have very little sympathy for the club, but there are so many other things that they do that screw signings up, because they're like going over the fine print of the contract. Oh, how are we going to structure this contract? Are we going to structure it as a loan to buy? Are we going to do less upfront payments and more of it as bonuses? And I'm not going to be oversimplistic about this. The structuring does matter. The structuring saves us money. The money we save can go into buying more players. But realistically, that's not what we save money for. We don't save money to buy more players. We save money to save money, because that returns more value to shareholders in this publicly owned company, in this privately owned company. So what frustrates me the most about the way we do signings is that we spend so much time structuring the deal that the player goes, are you even serious about me? Because if you're serious about me, just pay the money. And the player just looks at it and goes, I don't know what you're doing. There was something that I sent you on Twitter, right, about Ola going, I didn't know what Spurs were doing. They were talking about signing me, and then I didn't know what happened, so we literally just walked out of Spurs. That's Ola from Nottingham, right? So we need to show that we're serious about signing players, and that's every step of the way. How we negotiate with them, how we do the contracts, and we need to stop looking at everything based on just the short-term economic value, because we're actually losing long-term signings that could have made a difference. We missed out on Jack Grealish. We missed out on a bunch of other players because we were busy futzing around small details, and then we miss out on the whole signing that could have changed the club.
Right, Dustin, let's start the last question with you. What do you expect Thomas Frank to do in this Bayern Munich game at the Allianz Arena next week? Because, of course, it is our last pre-season game before we face PSG. Is he going to go strong from the off? Is this a dress rehearsal for the PSG game? Because, let's face it, we are facing two very experienced Champions League teams with, vastly experienced players, real quality and depth in these squads. What do you expect next week, and what do you expect in the Super Cup?
I think that Frank has been optimizing for, initially, the first few friendlies were optimizing for fitness. That's why we did like 2 friendlies in a day. 2 friendlies in a day, you're spreading your squad extremely thin. I think that he was in the stage of making sure he got to see every single player, because every coach wants to see whether this player should go out the door, this player should go on the loan, who's ready for the first team. And I think that as long as you're not playing a competitive game with something on the line like the PSG game, you should use as much of that as possible. If you play every game seriously, you're actually losing out on data that could be useful. Like, this person's not ready, send him on a loan, and then they come back, fully fleshed out, rather than sit on the bench and not get any minutes. So I think that part's important. I think the Bayern game is kind of where he reaches the point where this is where I'm getting closer to understanding who my best first 11 is, who the rotations are, what those options are. So I think that the Bayern game will be one where we see a lot less experimentation. The system will be more or less closer to what the finished product will be. And then with some tweaking along the edges to see, what are maybe the sub-units of players, these 3 centre-backs or this centre-back pairing and this DM pairing work better, what the midfield makeup is, what the movements should be. I think that's what we should expect to see more of. And then maybe more of tweaking around the edges around, what they do with set pieces and things like that as well.
Ricky, the season isn't far away now. I tell you, I feel like it's gone really, really quick. We're nearly at the end of pre-season. So what are your expectations from that Bayern Munich game? What will Thomas Frank be thinking and feeling going into that match?
I think, like you, bro, he will believe that it's almost a dress rehearsal for not just the Super Cup, but for the league. I think depending on who we've got in at those stages, he's going to be trying certain things within the side to get that creative spark going. Now, someone like Kudus can play in the 10. He has done very well in that position. His preferred position is the right. He's played on the left as well, but where he gets his most output from is normally the right-hand side. But he can be devastating in that middle. So maybe he's going to experiment with somebody like a Kudus in behind Solanke. Hopefully Solanke's ready to go for the Bayern game, because he's going to need some minutes before a Super Cup. You can't just chuck him in like that. So hopefully we get to see that. Hopefully we get to see Palhinha in there at some point, so he can get to a feel of how we're playing, what structure we're playing, start to understand the runs and all of that, etc., etc. So hopefully those guys are in. And I think that they're going to probably run that first team for the first 70-odd minutes. I'm going to say 65, 70-odd minutes, and then start changing it up regardless of result. We know that we need to do a lot of business before the Super Cup, before the start of the season. So let's see what happens. Like you were saying there, Chris, they shocked us. It was one of those. It was an old school shocker, the Morgan Gibbs White, and it's just a shame that it's more so a shame that it didn't happen, because it surprised us all and took us, by astonishment. That not only did we just sign Kudus, but less than 24 hours later, we've been linked with Morgan Gibbs White, and then we're going to sign him. So it was one of those bombers. It was one of those shocking moments that you're like, what? Wait, hold tight. Wait, we're actually acting like a big club? Wait, what's happened? What's happened? And then, of course, doesn't happen. So we've got that money. We know what we need. If you're going to back a new manager, you can't send him short. We've sent managers into the league short most seasons. There's always a position or 3 that we haven't covered, and we're stretching certain players out to those other positions.
Ricky, sorry to interrupt, but this time, when you're playing Champions League football, you are going to be caught out if you haven't got the squad, because, you know, let's be very honest and frank about it. And, you know, no disrespect to the Europa League, it's a very, very different competition to the Champions League. So it's so important and paramount that we get the right signings in, the right experience in, back the manager, because I know that, you know, there's probably a lot of expectation from the football club and possibly the fans that Thomas Frank is known for getting the best out of players, but you've got to give the guy the tools as well.
Absolutely, you have to. Otherwise, what's the point? If you're going to sack Ange Postecoglou, who, you know, got us to that glory in May, and got us to, you know, sacrifice his own job so that we could lift that trophy. If you're going to sack him and move on and say you want to compete on all fronts, then you've got to back this manager that you've brought in to take us to those new heights. You've got to give him the tools, haven't you? It's what we say every season about managers and squads, but this is the moment. This is going into the Champions League. This is the moment. We don't know what's going to happen in the league next year. We was in the Europa League last year, and we won it. We finished 17th and we won it, and we got through to the Champions League. Who knows where we're going to finish this year? It could be outside of a European spot. So you better give him what he needs so that we're not there, so that we do land in a European spot. And not only that, compete on all fronts and go as far and as deep as we can into that Champions League, as well as the domestic league cups. We need quality, though. It's not just about the numbers. We need quality, and high character. You know, Sonny leaving today shows you what character means, shows you what character can do when you're going through the worst of times and when you're in the depths. You know, character is the one that gets you up and keeps you moving forward. So not only do we need quality, but we need quality of character as well. Somebody who wants to come and play for Tottenham and take on the challenge and give his best for the cause. Those things are hard to find, but they are on the list. It takes a little bit extra money. It might take a little bit extra in wages, but it's there and they know who it is. So go and do it. The majority of the profiles that they've got over the last couple of transfer seasons, ever since Paratici's come in, yes, there's been some misses, but there's been a lot less misses and a lot more winners. Before that, there was a lot more losers. There was a lot more that they'd come in and we'd see him for 3 months and be like, oh, no, they've got to go. And then we're struggling to let them go. Reguilon has just left. You know, we've got Brian Hill, Solomon sitting there, not knowing what's happening there. Yeah. People are talking, we brought in Palhinha, but people are talking about Basuma. We're a club notoriously bad at selling. How many times, and we would have never guessed this or believed this, but how many times have we let a player go for free just because? Whether it was Doherty, Serge Aurier, Dele Alli, we've let people just go just to get them off the books. So go in there, get the right players, get the right profile. But the one thing that I would like outside of transfers, and I'd like to ask you this, Chris, because you've seen them more than anything, but I would love someone like Will Lanchier to stay as an option, as the third striker option. You know, yes, bring in a striker and let Dom and a new striker battle it out, but somebody has a bit of a mixed bag, because you look at Will and he's got the stature, he's got size, he's got a bit of bite about him. He loves scoring, and I'm sure that you've seen. I wish he got some more minutes out on the tour, and I'm sure you've seen him in training. What would you think about something like that, about Will staying on or going on loan?
I feel like, and funny enough, thanks for bringing that up, because I was about to ask Terry about that with Yang as well, what he's made of him so far. But it's an interesting one. I don't really think I can answer that yet until the window closes to know what we've got in terms of experienced players coming in. But I did say on a previous podcast that I do hope that some of these youngsters do get more minutes and they do get opportunities in the first team. it was interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, I was at Leyton Orient for the under-21s, and they had the likes of Scarlett, Donnelly, Lancashire. They were all there, and it was good that they allowed them to go and play for the under-21s to get more minutes. And like you've just mentioned, I would like to have seen some of the youngsters get more minutes in this pre-season. That is what it's about. And when you think that, we're going into the season, literally, what is it? About 10 days away. Is it going to be experienced players coming in, or are we going to be relying on some of these guys? Because if we
can't rely on them.
Exactly. If you're relying on some of these guys that you haven't given many minutes to in a pre-season, then I think that we're going to be, in a sticky spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 30 days or so in this transfer window, because I hope that the club do go big. But having said that, I'm a great advocate for giving the young players opportunities. But there's that very, very fine balance, and it is very fine.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think a big part of the reason that we haven't seen much of the young players play is because we've had all these delays, right? We delayed sacking Ange because we didn't want to won a trophy, and then sack the manager, right? So we waited, then we got Frank in, and then Frank wanted to look at the players, so then we have to wait again. And I think that what's happened is that we've spent all this time waiting for these things to happen, that now we have a very small window to get signings in. So Frank needs all the time he can to assess players that take up homegrown slots and everything. The young players, they don't take up the slots. He can it'll be good to have a look at them, but he doesn't have that time. And he can look at them throughout the season because they don't occupy those slots that are very sensitive. So he needs to prioritize the very limited time that he has now to go, do I need a homegrown player for this? What can we sign based on the homegrown market? How many foreigner slots do we have, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that those are the constraints we're under. We're really running out of time because we've spent 2 weeks, a month waiting for all these things to happen. And now we're up against it.
And it's a very interesting point as well, Dustin, and the fact that 2 years ago, Ange Postecoglou lost arguably our best player, I know, alongside Heung-Min Son. And now, of course, Thomas Frank has lost our best player in Heung-Min Son. So a difficult start for both managers, actually, in the last couple of years to start their Tottenham Hotspur managerial careers in losing, such a talent, right before the season starts. But I just hope the Spurs do go big and show real ambition, because when Johan Langer, Vinar Venkatesham, Thomas Frank, Daniel Levy, they've all come out and said the same thing. They've all been very aligned in the fact that they've said, we want to be fighting on all fronts, which I believe actually puts a little bit more pressure on the club, because we're all now looking, saying, well, okay, we all want to be fighting on all fronts. We'd love to see Spurs win the Premier League and the Champions League. So give us a squad that we're going to be excited by. Give us some top talented superstars that are, going to get us off the edge of our seats. So looking forward to it.
And not just
back up that statement, please.
For the seniors in the squad as well. For Coutinho Romero, for for those seniors in the squad to know that we're not just putting kids together, we're actually going to go out there and gets them excited. The same way it gets us excited, it gets them excited too. And it's important for them to see that happening.
Ricky, it's a shame. So we've been recording now for 2 hours 10. It's 2:47. It's 2:47 a.m. here in Korea, and I'm surprised that no one's knocked on my wall to say shut up. But it's a great point, because there are so many players, so many situations, so many things that we could talk about. This podcast could literally go on for hours, but we'll have to do it in the next episode. So, Ricky, thank you so much for coming back on, and thank you so much for talking to me again for another couple of hours about Spurs. Always enjoy your company, as you know, and most of the time we've always got a beer in the hand. So here we go again. Where can people find you? What you're up to? Anything exciting?
Loads of exciting bits, but I will tell you when I can tell you. But you can find me on Twitter, where I do most of my Tottenham tweets and stuff like that, at Ricky J Norwood. If you want to see what's up with life, then check out official Ricky Norwood on Insta. And I look forward to seeing you guys very, very soon. Always an honor and a pleasure, not only to be on with Dustin and Terry, but all of you beautiful people around the world. And an honor to be on for the man himself, for the only other person apart from Ginola that I've got on the back of a shirt
Yeah.
Mr. Son Heung-Min, thank you, my friend. Love you tremendously. And it's been an honor to be on for the Sonny's last podcast, you know? So, yeah, man, absolutely. Let's have it. Come on, you Spurs.
Yeah, it's been a great show. And big up to Peter in Melbourne. He's just said that it's 3:49 there. He is listening and watching to this podcast at 3:49 a.m. So, Peter, thank you so much.
Go to bed, Peter. Go to sleep. Find a pillow, mate. Love you. Come on, you Spurs.
Dustin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Luminor Coys, that's Luminor Common You Spurs. And my daughter's here to sing for one last time. Nice one, Sonny. Nice one, Son.
Nice one, Sonny. Let's have another one.
Fantastic. Well, Dustin, thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you on again very soon. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been on holiday recently. I hope you had a good time, by the way. And where can people find you, and what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, I am on X, but not very active. More of a follower. Thank you for being such a trooper. I can't believe it. Like 2:50 in the morning there and doing this, especially with the flight coming up. Thanks so much for doing all this, Dustin, Ricky. It was an absolute pleasure as always. And like we said earlier, just an honor to talk about Son's career and to kind of help him ride off into the sunset with this. So thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I must say I've really enjoyed today's show. I know it's been an emotional one with Son leaving, and we wish him all of the very best in his next step in his career. I know he's going to absolutely smash it wherever he goes. It looks like it's going to be Los Angeles. So, it's going to be great for him. But what is next for Spurs? Hopefully more trophies are on their way under Thomas Frank.
Yeah.
Of course, we got one the other night in Hong Kong against Arsenal. But, these other competitions are a lot more harder to win. We need to do a lot more in the transfer window, as we spoke about. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for all of your incredible support. And we will see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.
Come.